Welcome to the Creative Flight, where I bring people into my world and I just chat to them and we have a casual conversation. Today, I've invited Freddie, who just discovered that I am Swedish just like him. I am very curious about finding out more about Freddie, who's the co-founder of Snask. His accolades are actually quite extensive. I don't even know where to begin. He's an author. I think you have your band. There's just so much. But in a titled nutshell, how do you identify yourself, Freddie? Introduce yourself to the world.
That's hard. I think I'm a human, and I'm Freddie, and I'm a brand director for sure, and founder of Snask. Snask has been around for 18 years. Not that I am Snask, but that's the company at least. And other than that, I would say I was adopted from South Korea when I was very young. 2 years old or 1 year old, that's debatable. And then I grew up in north of Sweden. For those who don't know, will be Winterfell of Game of Thrones maybe, but then I now live outside of Stockholm. And yeah, I'm so happy to be on your podcast.
I'm excited to speak to you. Whereabouts outside Stockholm? Is it just like in the outskirts? I
No,
was in Odenplan, so I was in Vasastan.
well, I mean, I used to live in Stockholm, in the middle of Södermalm, like Mosebacke, but now I live in a little village outside called Gnesta. So it's an end line in Sweden. We call it Slutstation on the pendeltåg, but you take the fast train in, so it takes 35.
You know, you live further out in Stockholm terms, but you're closer in London terms than I am into Central. So
Yeah,
now,
right?
yeah, it takes, like, I live the same distance away that it takes less time to go to Uppsala than it does for me to get into central London.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm not even that far out. Like, I'm still considered like, I'm at the end of the line. I'm near Wimbledon. So it's insane how the size is so different.
It's insane. I mean, I think Stockholm, Manhattan, and a few are very small. But then if you go to London, it's insane how big it is. I didn't live in London. I lived in Carlisle in the north of England for 3 years where I studied. It's not at all like London. The people from London who we studied with up there, they called it the arsehole of England. That's how you can call it.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
So you were up north and you in the UK, you got
Mhm.
your, is that the design degree you got there? Is that what you were
Yeah,
studying?
yeah, graphic design, yeah.
Graphic design. And then you went straight in and started your business. Isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the mindset of someone at that stage and age that goes like, okay, I've just studied, I don't want to work, or I just want to start my own business? Like, what happened?
I mean, we were studying 3 year, what do you say, program, a bachelor, and in the second year we already started to have delusion, grandeur, thinking like, I mean, we should start our own company, and we actually named it Snask already in the second year,
Wow.
and then we did internships in London and New York, and we found out that we don't want to be a part of a big agency because we would be a small cog in a big machinery. And if we would do anything, it would be to either work at a very small studio or start our own business. And we felt like we want to start Snask. So in the third year, our final major and the final project was actually to create the Snask identity.
Okay.
And so we did. We actually spoke to a lot of people in the industry at that point, some big names, and they told us that we were ignorant and arrogant and that you can't start your own agency without 10 years of experience. But then we thought, like, whose experience are we going to get? Probably white old men who read Kotler's marketing theories before the internet even existed. And we're like, why should we do that? Maybe we can just make all the mistakes ourselves, try and find our way, and further down the line, we will have the Snask way of doing things. Of course, not completely apart from everyone else, but at least we tried every way that we found and decided like which is our way.
Yeah.
And yeah, we still do a lot of mistakes. 18 years down the line, we are still, yeah, doing that.
Amazing. You are with, so you have a co-founder, or when you say we, is it more than just you and your co-founder?
It's me and my partner Eric. So we are the owners of Snask, and then everyone else is basically freelance. But we have For example, David, our key account director, isn't allowed to be freelance by the Swedish government. So he have to be employed even though he doesn't want to and stuff like that. So that's basically how we've always worked with specialists and experts, and we had a lot of people employed, but after a while, those people don't want to be employed. They want to leave. They don't want to leave. They just want to have the freedom, and that's I think how it works. So most of all of our teams are all experts, and they are all like their own, so to speak. And then we put together teams for every project. Some projects, it's like people we worked with for 15 years, or people who has been employed, or completely new people as well. So it depends on, but it's been up and down. Our business model has gone up and down, or not business model maybe, but how we employ people or not. But in the end, it becomes, how do we pay people? Do we pay people by wage, or do we let them invoice and decide themselves how much should go to pension, how much should go to insurance, blah, blah, blah. And yeah. And when it comes to then senior experts, they normally want to handle it themselves.
Yeah. And you know what's really refreshing for the audience to hear is because you've worked with some major brands, and knowing that you actually assemble a team and win the pitches, or we'll go into that because I'm really curious about how you actually get your clients and the whole pitching aspect of things, if you do it even. But the fact that you are actually assembling teams and you aren't this huge studio but still get to work with some amazing brands would be so refreshing for the audience to actually hear. So really, thank you for sharing that. I think I'm really curious about, before we go into the whole getting clients bit, I'm really curious about your partnership, because I've tried being in partnerships before. Every business I've started with a partner hasn't taken off. Whenever I do something solo, it works really well. You're in an 18-year relationship with Eric. I mean, first off, how did you know that this is the person you would do this with? And how you navigated the past 18 years?
I mean, it's a very good question. And first of all, I have to correct you a little bit, because from the beginning, it was me, Magnus, and Petter. So we all
Okay.
studied together and we started Snask. After 2 years, we decided to buy out Petter, one of our co-founders, and we had said before, like, if work and Snask comes between us as friends, it's not really worth it. And we felt at that point that we'd rather be friends than working together. And I think that's a big lesson, that not because, I mean, if you take your best friends and family, you don't want to have a business with them, even though you love them. So that's also the case. And when Petter left, Eric came into the picture. So I think me and Eric now are 16 or 17 years in our relationship. And then Magnus left after 10 years. He became a dad, had a lot of time, and felt like, I want to do something else. So no bad blood there. And then, yeah, it's been me and Eric. And I mean, it is, like you say, it is a relationship. You have to see it that way. You have to treat it that way. And you have to, because it is. And I mean, in my life, my two biggest relationships, one is my girlfriend and the other one is Eric, actually. And I mean, it's natural like that. And you have to nurture both of them, and you will have conflicts in both of them, and you will be pulled in different directions all the time. So, I mean, you have to find a way to communicate with each other. You learn each other so well, of course, but I think not being afraid of talking to each other and making sure the communication is I mean, that's the hardest part in any relationships.
Is there some anecdote or story that you would be open to relaying that kind of is a pivotal moment for you, where you realize, okay, I think we've figured out how we're going to communicate every conflict that may arise, because there will be disagreements, and you're like, okay, we kind of figured out a way, and this would be really useful for other people to also know?
I think that it was when, because me and Eric, of course, like in a relationship, have been fighting a lot, had a lot of conflicts, and one teaching or insight is that email is very bad, because you might write it in a neutral tone, but the other person reads it in a very angry tone, or you can write something fast, but the other person write it as you being short or arrogant. So that is one thing. The other thing is that we learned that when we got digging deeper into a conflict, being angrier, angrier, and angrier, we noticed that when one started to go the other way and be a little bit more positive and forgiving, it instantly turned the other person to be that as well. So I think that we learned that a lot, that it's way easier to communicate if we don't go down that classic conflict pattern that we have,
Yeah.
and instead try and stay a bit more positive. I also want to say something because you said about clients and big clients working with teams. And I mean, sometimes clients come to us and they say, how many people are you? And if we say, oh, we sit together teams, blah, 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 we are this amount. And then they say, yeah. And then sometimes they choose someone else and they say, yeah, but they were 100 people. And we're like, but you will never work with 100 people. You will work at most with 5 people, or 5 to 10 if it's an insanely big client. And you won't get to work with the best team. You will get to work with the people who have time to do the work when you need the work to be done. And we found that as well. But for us, it's like, when someone needs us, we can put together a team with the people that are the best fitted for the work, not people who sit and have nothing to do. Because if you have a payroll and people employed, you need to keep them busy, right? So I think explaining that to clients has always been key for us when they ask us about it. Because it's not their fault, they're not educated in that, they maybe don't understand or see it that way. But I think it's important because it's basically just how you pay people. That's the only difference, I think.
How are you getting into the room with these amazing clients of yours?
It's different because we are on the journey. For us, for example, we are talking about, I mean, the first 5 years, we sat down after 5 years and looked at all the clients and like what traced them back to like, where did we get this client from? And we realized that almost every client came from a friend. So it's also like, I think it's a good thing to see your friends as a good network. That's what all the people do when they land huge contracts. They know one of the persons in the client or whatever, and they've been friends for a long time. So using that from the get-go, I think is the only way. It's very important. And then further down the line, of course, we focused from the beginning to build a strong brand, and that's been as important to us as doing projects, because we built Snask not to make money, but to have a vehicle to have fun, a way to make our fun, a way to make our lives more fun, more rich, fulfilling, stuff like that. And in that sense, creating a brand that was our values and bold and stood up for what we believed in was very important for us. And a lot of the clients come to us because of that. But it means that we have 2 parts. One part is, like many agencies, we do high quality work. We are very professional. We always deliver on time, blah, blah, blah. But that's a good thing to have, but that's not why they choose us. And then the other part is our brand, like pink, champagne, rock and roll, have fun. We believe in this, make enemies and gain fans. And that's the reason they choose us. Now, if we didn't have the other leg, the professional high quality leg, we would only be clowns, basically, that you can have, that's funny guys, you know. But when we combine them, they both need each other, it becomes much more powerful. And then clients can come and say like, well, I applied for a job and I didn't get it. So the second best option is to work with you from a company I'm employed at or whatever. So I think that's been a big thing for us, that we have this reputation and people want to contact us because of that nowadays, because from the first day it wasn't like that, of course.
When you, in your early days, and you were creating your identity, was the brand already in place? Or I mean, I know there'll be an evolution, but like the foundations that you have right now, were they already in place really early on? Or has it just been like, no, I think we're going to do a full 360 or 180 shift and rebrand completely? Like how has the evolution looked like?
No, I think we had the brand from the start.
Okay.
Me and Magnus wrote almost 100-point manifesto when we were students. This is the things we believe in. This is the things we think should make the world better, etc. And those 100 manifesto points became the 10 commandments of Snask. We had like made it, wrote them together, and in the end we had 10. which is still our manifesto points. Snask was always meant to be very bold. Pink and gold was always the colors from the beginning, and the way we write, the way we see things. Of course it has evolved, but the idea, the foundation of our brand was always there from the beginning. We created it, and then we just kind of spun on it. It kept spinning and doing things more and more and more and more, but in the same Snask way, you know.
For those who don't know you, because I've obviously researched you and seen you around, what are some of the wild things that you've done? Because there seem to be quite a few of them.
I mean, there are many, many things.
Share your top 5.
That's my top 5. I mean, one is that we bought a rock band in the middle of the night, 4 a.m. So it was Eric's band that we bought, and the singer in the band sold it to me basically. And I told him that I thought the band name was really bad, the trombonist sucked, and the music they played was really bad. But if they changed to play 70s rock and roll, which they wanted to play, if we couldn't change the band name and etc., we could sign them. We could start a record label and sign them and then basically that's a story, and then just continued from there. And we named them Road because of blues bands from the 70s would be on the road all the time. But then a famous producer in Sweden changed them to singing in Swedish, and so we translated road into Swedish, which is väg.
Mm-hmm.
But in English, väg means vag, which means vagina,
Didn't
and we
even
didn't think about that exactly, right? So we had loads of t-shirts and merch which said vag. So there was one time a Californian girl came past her studio and she's like, I want to buy 20 of your shirts. We're like, wow, you really love the band. She's like, well, the band is okay, but your shirts is amazing. I'm gonna buy them for all my friends because it says vag on them, very, very big. And we're like, okay. That's one story. Another story is we made a beer called Shower Beer. We teamed up with a brewery, Pang Pang Brewery in Stockholm, and we decided to make a beer together. And instead of do a boring agency beer, we would like, let's combine our specialities. We know branding and design, and you know brewing. So we were like, let's do the best possible mix. And then we decided to do a shower beer. So a beer made specifically to drink in the shower, which was designed in a glass bottle, almost like a perfume or shampoo bottle. It was small enough to drink in 4 gulps because otherwise it gets warm in the shower. But it's 10% strong alcohol, so you get the same effect as a real beer. It's screen printed, so you have a good grip. And since it's a pale ale, you can use it as conditioner in your hair. And it just blew up. It was all over the world. Everyone wanted to write about it and whatever. It's a fun, stupid project. We had our own conference where we combined creative talks with concerts and clubbing. We had Jessica Walsh, we had James Victoria, we had Jessica Hish. So we had like a lot of idols of us come to speak.
So if we go back to the shower beer, for people who are listening, they're just thinking like, that's such a brilliant idea, but I don't have the money. I don't have the connections. How do I get to that point where I can have so much fun? So that's like the first part. Then I have a follow-up question. Do you have any response to that?
I mean, we didn't have money either. So we basically just asked the brewer, the guy that we knew, if he wanted to do it. And he said, yeah, hell yeah, let's do a beer together. It basically didn't cost much because he knew his stuff, we knew our stuff. So we would design for free and do the strategy for free, and he would do the brewing for free. And the only thing we had to pay was ingredients. And then we paid for the printing of the bottle, of course, and made a smaller batch to begin with. And then we put it out in social media. We actually put it out just before Christmas, and then it just exploded. And it was interesting because at that point it was still in the tanks. So we had photographed the bottles with water in them to make it look like it's elixir, because you have to sell it before you actually brew it. But while it was still in the tanks, people started reviewing it, how good it tasted and stuff like that, which we felt like that's interesting because we haven't tasted it ourselves yet.
Yeah.
And so that didn't cost much at all. And I think the band, didn't cost much at all either. It's more our time that it's like we could, because I think a money making, and with that I mean an agency that is only built to do profit, they would never have a person sit and work like 40 hours on something that is just stupid. But we kind of don't, we're not like that. And we are, maybe we are financially stupid, but we don't think it's worth to like put a lot of time to do something weird. And we think it's fun.
It's interesting because listening to you, it goes back to the studies that have shown that a monetary reward actually decreases the creativity. It's some inference of other psychological studies, but it sounds to me that because you're not in it for the money, if I just infer it from that, your creativity knows no bounds. You're just like, okay, where can we take this? What other level can we reach?
Yeah.
When I go back to the beer, what was the intention? Like you start this thing, you're like, oh, let's create a beer, but what was the primary intention? What did you want out of it?
Actually, nothing. We were clueless. We just got really excited about someone just popped the idea. Shouldn't we make a beer of our own? And then we're like, yeah, let's do an agency beer. And they're like, no, that's super boring. That's like 1A of ideas. Let's throw that away and let's do something else. And that's basically just how it happened, spiraled, and no one thought about the effects of it or the consequence of it or what should we do with it. Or, I mean, we realized much later when it blew up how hard it is because you have to buy like 40,000 liters of beer, and the same day you buy that, you have to sell it because it's a fresh product.
Yeah.
So if you sit with 40,000 liters of beer and you haven't sold it, you lose shitloads of cash. So we learned that much later. But I mean, it's fun to just spiral out of control and do whatever, you know.
Nice. Okay. Do you have some other ones to share?
Yeah, I have one more because I
Yeah.
think it's fun. We remade one of our bathrooms into the shittiest Will Ferrell museum in the world. So when you go in there, it's called WIPE, Will's Institute of Private Exhibitions. And when you open it, it's just pictures and paintings of him everywhere. There's a TV with all his films going on. There's a guided voice of David Attenborough that goes through his works and his life. His mustache in there, all a lot of quotes, and you know it's very fun. That's also a project that makes no sense at all,
Yeah.
but he knows it's there because, and he's actually lives in Sweden sometimes. Famous Swedish artists who made songs with him have photographed themselves in this bathroom. So it's fun, but very stupid, of course.
And where does the fun lead you?
The fun leads us to have a richer life, more fun life. So I mean, for us, that we don't always do things the most efficient way when we do our own projects. There are way more effective ways, of course, to do things maybe, or maybe also with client projects. You can probably do some of the things that we've done in AI, but we don't think it's fun. For us, it doesn't give anything. We have to get an outlet, and like we like working with our hands. And it's not because it's the most effective way, but we really love touching things and like art direct by actually moving physical objects and taking a photo instead of sitting in a 3D program or using AI. And I think that's what we get out of it. We have to like, we visited Serbia many years ago, and then we went to this fashion show, and there was a lot of women who created amazing dresses, and we asked them like, is this a competition or what's happening, or are they going to sell them? And they're like, no, nothing actually, because they can't, but they only do this because they need to get their creativity in outlet, you know, and that was their outlet, and they knew that nothing would happen with these but just have to do them, you know. And it really struck something inside of us as well, that sometimes we just have to do something stupid or something that we feel like because it's our outlet, you know.
I get that. And I like that you do it and you get that fulfillment and joy out of it. And you mentioned that you want to do things, it's tactile, you want to use your hands, which brings me to another point of AI. Like in the world that we live in now, AI is just all the rage. What's your view? What's your opinion? Where do you think this is going? How does that impact?
I think that it's evolution, of course, and we will never look back. But I think it's safe to say I don't think it's gonna replace humans. I think that it's another tool, and it's when you see it as a tool, it's a great tool, of course. But when that grows as a tool, people will also, the human side also grows at the same time. I mean, if I, even before AI existed, if I had a dinner and I invited my friends and I printed out a Mona Lisa on a piece of paper and put it on my wall, they would be like, "Why the fuck do you have Mona Lisa on your wall?" Look, I just printed it out. It took me 2 seconds. Yeah, you used to take it down. It's not the real thing, you know? And that's the thing, like, it's not fun because it's not the real thing, you know? There's something about that people will always want the real thing, the real story made by a human. If you go to customer service and you might think that, well, customer service is going to be replaced by AI now. And AI can even, you can call in, you can write in, etc. But that's not why people call in. It's not only to solve their problems, because if that was true, AI could already replace all the humans on customer service. They see that people also want to be seen and heard in their problem. So they can't, an AI can't replace that because a human won't feel it. So if they might ask, wait a minute, am I speaking to an AI? And they might say, yes. No, I want to speak to a human. I want to feel seen and heard. I don't want to feel seen and heard by a machine. And that you can't replace. And I think that AI will always. I mean, it's like David Bowie. It's like I'm not worried at all about AI and music. It might become its own genre, but it's not interesting. It's not interesting to hear something made by a machine. It might be a little bit interesting for a genre, but nothing more than that. Or if your friend calls you and like, oh, I'm gonna send you a 2 hour long movie. I made it. It took me 30 minutes. It's like I don't want to watch your 2 hour long movie. How good it even is, because it's just you didn't make it. You made it so fast that and it's also made only by old references, because that's how AI work. And yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a great tool and we're going to use it, but it can't replace humans. It can only help and assist.
Do you use AI at the moment in your own business?
Yeah, we use it for text, of course, and then also for references, because when you do keynotes to sell in pitch projects, etc., it's easy to just get reference images from AI, for example. But then, of course, when it comes to treatments, you need to sketch, because otherwise it doesn't. AI at the moment is not, would I say, exact enough. So you have to do the more specific ones, of course, yourself.
And you nicely mentioned pitching, which gives us a nice segue into clients and pitching. What is
Mm-hmm.
your, so the listeners would be creatives of all kinds, solopreneurs to agencies. And it'd be interesting to know what your system is, whatever you're open to sharing, whatever your system is. So some people say we don't do proposals, we don't pitch, or we always do pitching and we do our RFPs, etc. What is your system of getting the clients and then actually converting them?
So, I mean, when it comes to pitching, we normally say no, but we kind of let them know that we would gladly give you our thoughts on the brief. One example is a major brand, a global brand, who contacted us, who just wanted a new visual identity, and they wanted us to pitch, and we felt it didn't make any sense, and we said no, and it wasn't paid anyway. And then they returned to us and said, like, yeah, but we can pay you actually, if you don't say anything, we can pay you to be in the pitch anyway. And we're like, but it doesn't change the fact that you will still not choose the agency who is the best. You will only choose the agency that will put enough resources on it. And everyone shoots from the hip. So it's like, it's not accurate anyway. But then we told them, like, but if you send over your strategic documents, we can look at it and tell you how we would have done things. And they did, and then we felt like this is all wrong. Your strategy is completely wrong. We don't believe in this. We think that you need to build on emotion instead of rational like arguments, and stop talking about the product and more about like what your brand evokes, what emotions it evokes. And we just told them, and then they just kind of came back and said, you're the only agency that told the truth. We were honest. Who said we would basically had to do a lot of work, and that we weren't amazing. Every other agency just showed up with like mood boards of what we asked for, basically. And then they said, like, we called off the whole pitch and we want to work with you guys.
Amazing.
And that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But we won several, client projects by actually turning the pitches down, but telling them like, this is how we work, this is how we would do things, because it doesn't make any sense. Pitching doesn't make any sense. It's like asking 5 builders to build you a house, and then you, who is not an expert of houses, are gonna walk around and kick in the walls and like, oh, why is this wall here? Yeah, it holds up the whole house. I didn't know. It's yeah, because this is so stupid. And then like, well, we can't choose your house anyway because we don't want it by the sea. But you didn't mention that you didn't want it by the sea. You just said the house. And it's just, it doesn't make any sense. But sometimes we do enter pitches if we feel like, okay, it's a good brief and we feel that we can do something good. If it's a fun client, so there's a lot of different things that we consider if we're going to do a pitch. And we work with film, right? So in film, it's very different than branding and design. In film, you very, very, very much pitch all the time on treatments, on concepts and films. It's basically how they work. And so we do it a lot more there than in the branding and design part.
And how do you tackle pricing?
Pricing is purely psychological, and it's just first your own self, how sure you are on yourself and your self-worth. And then, of course, how you can talk to the client about it. Most people think the price is the number one thing, but actually studies have shown that first thing is personal relationship that you have. Second is a level of quality. Third, I can't even remember. And the fourth is price. And so if I remember a client came to us and like, oh, you have good work, but your price is double than another agency that we found. And we're like, oh, okay. And then we just asked like, well, do they do the same level of quality as us? And they were like, yes. And then then you should work with them. It's great. I mean, it's perfect if they have half the price. Then I would definitely recommend you to go and work with them instead. And they're like, yeah, but why would you recommend us to do that? Well, because we cannot go down to those prices. We would have to cut corners, and it would, for us, immensely, make the project worse. So we can't do that. And very often, the client won't go because they also realize this, and it's not really, yeah. And then, I mean, when it comes to pricing, we had the strategy from the get-go that we would care more about the project we put in our portfolio, that they would hold up a very high level of quality, not depending on how big the client was or how much we actually got paid, because some of them maybe wasn't paid good at all, but no one knows that. Then future clients won't know that. And so we would big, like, companies like Samsung or whatever, we decided to not put them in our portfolio. Loads of clients, Microsoft, etc., just because we felt like it's not good enough. And if it's not good enough, companies contact you based on your portfolio, and they want you to do the same for them. So if you only put boring corporate things you're not happy with in your portfolio, that's what people are going to contact and ask for you to do. And gradually your work will get less valued because it gets worse and worse. But if you do the opposite, if you only put projects that are amazing in your portfolio, no matter if they're your own projects or client projects, people will contact you for those, but you don't know how much anyone paid for them. And so you can set your own price, and your price will go up if your level of quality will, so I think it's a better model. And then the final thing is that you should always have a very high hourly rate, because clients understand hours, but they don't want to get the second project pay more in price, So they don't want you to like, oh, we have a new project, how much is it? Yeah, but this time my hourly rate is twice as high. They would be like, no, we won't agree with that. But if you then lie and say like, well, I cost like this, but I do this project in 2 hours, and then you lie and you do it in 8 hours, but you don't only invoice them for 2 hours or whatever. But then the next time they contact you, you say, well, this is a bigger job. And they're like, yes. So it takes a longer time. Yes. And so my hourly rate times whatever hours, it will be this. And they will be like, yes. So it's way better to keep a high hourly rate and then grow number of hours.
Do you charge by the hourly rate, or do you charge by the project?
We don't charge per hour at all. So what I just said makes more sense if you're a freelancer, where a lot of both agencies and clients kind of want you to have hourly rates. We basically, if someone asks us for hourly rates, we can of course make up them. But in a way, it's more like, what do you want done? What's your budget? And how can we accommodate that? And then there's never the same setup. And that's the easiest way to get things done. And we tell the client, if just tell us a budget and what you need, and we'll let you know what we can do. And if you lie to us and say a lower budget, I mean, it doesn't matter for us because we will do the job according to the budget you have. And if you have more budget hidden, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to not use it for us, because it's not like we're gonna work way more if you have a smaller budget. Then it's gonna be different. Then it's gonna be, you have to like strip away some of the deliverables, etc., etc. So it makes sense to just be more transparent.
Is that how you would communicate to the client, in this transparent way?
Yeah,
I love
we
that.
definitely, yeah, definitely.
It's so simple. It's so straightforward. You both know where you are with each other. You can have a really honest relationship. I love that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
easy.
For sure. And I mean, has it happened that some client fooled us? Probably. That probably happened. But we would never put down work and go minus on a project. And then we would tell them, hey, now we're up in a lot of time here. So we need to like see how we can solve this, or we need more. You need to add more to the budget in order for us to be able to do these things, etc. So I mean, it's way easier and nicer, because also ours is not safe even for the client, because you can make up as many hours as you want, right? And in every meeting, there's 3 people, or maybe you add 5 people to every meeting, and then it's 5 hours for one meeting. And it just becomes a very weird way of seeing it, I think.
So between you and Eric, who does the sales?
It's both, actually. So we're very much like divided up. So he's the creative director and film director. So he does creative concepts and a lot of film and photo production. And I'm brand director, so I oversee the brand and design projects. So it's very, very like divided in that sense. Then we can sell each other or the other side as well, but we're both specialized in our own like departments or whatever.
What's next for Snask?
What's next? I mean, we made a product called the Pink Jesus, which is porcelain Jesus that is pink. Of course, a lot of people will be pissed off that it's a pink Jesus. Then we put the female symbol on the altar, which also gonna piss off a lot of people. And then we had him wear Crocs. So that's also gonna piss off a lot of people. And then he has a holy grail in front of him, and when you press it, it connects to a button that you can program to do anything you want. So the idea is that you press the Holy Grail and Jesus will perform a miracle. If it's ordering Domino's pizza or saying something funny or whatever, it doesn't matter. And yes, so that's like what we're working on at the moment to get out.
Nice. That sounds really exciting. You
Yeah.
recently released a book. I think it was just a few months ago.
Yep.
This is your second book. The first book is titled Make Enemies, Not Friends.
No.
No.
This is the 3rd edition of the same book.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's still called Make Enemies and Gain Fans, but it's added chapters of what happened the last like 8 years, and it's writer's comments. So me and Eric comment on all the earlier chapters, and this was a big lie, and why did you write this, and this is so
I
stupid.
love that.
Stuff like that. So yeah, so we just released that.
And where can people find that book?
They can find it on our website in our shop.
You said something, and then I want to go into that. You said it's going to piss a lot of people off. You're not afraid of pissing people off.
Oh, we love that. We think that that's how you are distinctive as a brand. I mean, if you as a company have 1% of the world population as your market, you are very rich. You're very successful. Yet people and companies are super afraid to piss off. Even like, oh, we don't want to post a black post on Black Lives Matter. Why not? But then we have to live up to it. It's like, yeah, that's very good if you would live up to it actually. Or no, we don't say political things, or we don't. Well, that means you don't care about anything, and it in the end people won't care about you. And that's the thing, and it's very hard to distinguish your brand if you don't have any values, or you don't have any personality, etc. You don't think anything. And we always think that you should have opinions and you should stand up for them. And if you do that, you will get enemies, but you will also get fans. And that's what we strongly believe in. That's why we also, in a way, like to piss off the right kind of people. If you are a person who thinks a pink Jesus is horrible, well, then you're not one of our people. And I mean, as one girl said on the internet, maybe the God was a woman, and maybe she sent down her daughter, and her daughter teamed up with her 12 friends, and they wrote a book. In that book, there was a virgin named Marcus, and he would never be allowed to do anything else than stand in the kitchen and cook food and have children, while all the women could go to work and have a career or whatever, And it's just interesting. We just want to piss off the right kind of people, and that way also like communicate what we think about things.
So when you piss off people,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about it from the emotional perspective. How does one build up the resilience to be okay with others being angry at them or even misunderstanding them? Because that takes a strong personality to be able to, it's one thing to just piss someone off, but then you also get the backlash or the retaliation or the anger or the frustration, whatever that is. So where are you mentally, and how did you become this way where you're like, okay, you know what? I can take this.
I mean, we don't really care if people get angry, because we think that if we say things we stand up for, then people can get as angry as they want because we say what we believe in. We wrote a debate article in a Swedish, what do you say, organizations magazine, that we talked about the AGI, the network around the globe, the elite network, that you can only become a member if you are recommended by another member. The members are most often white men, old men, and they also get to speak at all the conferences, and they only recommend each other. And in Sweden, we have had 12 members, where 4 are still alive. They've all been old white men. During all the years, they didn't think that any woman in Sweden was good enough to ever become a member, apparently. And no young person either. So it's only them and their friends. And then, of course, they eat dinners together and they keep doing these things. So we wrote an article about how crazy it is. And then a lot of people contacted us because we got also hate from these old men, and they got furious about this. But then we also got a lot of people saying like, this is so good that you wrote this. No one ever speaks about this. AGI is like a super weird network where, it doesn't make any sense. And also this very famous Swedish woman in our industry, she told us, you have so much fuck off capital. And she asked us like, where did you get that? And it's almost the same question.
Yeah.
But for us, one thing is that we don't compete with our work. So we don't care who sits in the jury. Because her question was also, aren't you afraid because these men that you just pissed off are very powerful in our industry? But we were like, but it doesn't matter because they might sit in a jury and not vote for us, but we don't even compete with our work. We think competitions are very weird and strange, and we rather put our money on other things. And that also is a way. Then we are not afraid if they are sitting in a jury or what they think about us. They are the ones who should be afraid or ashamed, because they are the ones, having a very bad view of humans,
Love this. And I love the courage, the resilience, and the willingness to say what other people aren't even saying. So that does take a lot, but it seems so simple for you. And I wish more people had that in them, inclusive of myself. Like, it's taken me years to kind of come to the point where I'm like, oh, I know who I am and I accept who I am. Years of just people pleasing. And this is a story of a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. But I think, for example, Jessica Walsh and her team is even braver because they live and have their company in the US, and they keep posting anti-Trump things. And a lot of other designers or people in our industry from the US, they don't do it, and they say like, yeah, but I'm not political or whatever, and they kind of hide behind that argument. But they have kids, they have friends, they must have, I mean, the shit storm that Trump is unleashing must affect everyone. So if you're not standing up for it, I think you're probably more that you're afraid to lose clients or afraid than anything else. Because also if you're Jessica Walsh and their level of clients, they have something to lose. They have, but they take that risk, and I think they will get more clients because of it. I think a lot of people on big companies will be like, well, I'm gonna work with them because they stand up for something that others don't, and I think that's right, and I'm gonna support it. You know, I would if I was a client. So I think that it's a good thing. But yeah, I think they're very brave doing it.
I feel like the theme of all of this is, and you didn't put it this way, know your values, show your values, and live your values, and just be honest about everything.
Yeah,
Life gets to be simple if we choose it.
definitely.
Yeah. Anything that you want to share with the listeners? How can they find you? Anything that you're feeling that, oh, I would really like to tell more people about this before we wrap up?
I think making your studio space fun and inspiring, I think, is very important. We have our doorbell, for example. We got annoyed with it because it's like someone pressing a button and we have to come around and open the door. So we decided to put the loudspeaker on the outside instead. So when people pressed and then we recorded new sounds, so it recorded compliments. So when they pressed the button, they only got different compliments, and we didn't hear them, which is bad for business. But then when we eventually found out that someone was there, they were very happy because they got a lot of compliments from this thing that they pressed. And we have so many stupid things in our suit. We remade, of course, one big room to a big pink bar. And that now serves as all our friends' birthday parties, and like that's another thing I think is fun is that we made a 15th anniversary party when we turned 16. I don't know why, because we felt like we can't celebrate 16 if we didn't celebrate sweet 15 or 15 whatever. And so we did a huge party. They costed so much money. And even though we had like sponsors for everything, we still had spent so much money. And in the end, we're like, why should we invite the industry to this? We don't have, it doesn't enrich our lives. We just want to invite our family and pets and friends, you know, our best people who are not in the industry. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. And then we just decided to, let's just have our friends come. And it became mad because it's like a very expensive party for only our friends. But that's also, it says something about that's what we want to do. We want Snask to fulfill our lives.
Yeah.
And our lives is also our friends. And if their lives get better by sometimes going to a Snask party, that's like perfect for us. And we really look forward to the 20th.
Absolutely amazing to have you, Freddie. Thank you for being so incredibly open, transparent. You literally answered every question and given so many stories. I loved it. So thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you, Ivy, for having me. It's been a very big pleasure to be here.
And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Instagram is easiest, or otherwise our website.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivy.
That's it for today's episode of The Creative Flight. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I invite you to leave a review. It really helps more creators find the show. For more insights and behind the scenes content, you can follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn. You can also check out my resources on ivymalik.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Until then, keep creating, keep pushing those boundaries, and keep taking flight.